Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
I'm Sarah Jack. Today, we're stepping into the doctor's office. We're looking at the men responsible for the physical and sometimes spiritual health of the colony.
It's a crucial topic because on this date in history, February 16th, 1692, one key player in the upcoming Salem Witch Trials made a significant move. William Griggs Sr., a physician, purchased a new home and land in Salem Village for £71.
Dr. Griggs is a name that looms large in the trials. At the time of this purchase, he and his wife had actually been living in Salem Village for at least 2 years. Before that, they had resided in Boston, Roxbury, and Rumney Marsh.
And he wasn't alone in that house. William lived there with his wife and with their niece, Elizabeth Hubbard. And we know that Elizabeth Hubbard would become a central figure very soon. She became afflicted herself just days later on February 25th.
But Griggs is perhaps most famous for what he did professionally. William Griggs got down to business soon after moving. It is widely believed that it was Griggs who declared the afflicted girls, Betty Parris and Abigail Williams, to be under an evil hand.
That diagnosis, under an evil hand, essentially shifted the crisis from a medical problem to a legal and spiritual one.
William Griggs was just one in a long line of colonial physicians. If we go back a bit to 1629, when John Endicott was governor of Massachusetts Bay, based in Naumkeag, what we call Salem today, he sent for Dr. Samuel Fuller, a Mayflower passenger, to come up from Plymouth Colony to help with his wife's illness.
And the Massachusetts Bay Colony's next governor, John Winthrop, was a physician himself. His son, John Winthrop Jr., was also a noted physician and alchemist and governor of Connecticut. And Waitstill Winthrop, grandson of John, son of John Jr., he was also a physician. So medicine was often the purview of the elite and the educated and shared in families like this.
In the Salem area specifically, there was quite a roster of medical men. Though many had passed away just before the trials began, there was George Emery, who died in 1687, and Daniel Weld, who passed in 1690.
Then there's the Swinnerton family. John Swinnerton was a physician who died in 1690. Fans of Nathaniel Hawthorne might recognize that name from the House of the Seven Gables.
There's also an interesting question regarding his brother, Job Swinnerton. It's possible Job was a physician, though some records, like Sidney Purley's, classify him as a yeoman.
The Swinnerton family web is tight. Job Swinnerton Jr., that's the nephew of John the physician, had a daughter, Elizabeth, who married my ancestor, Joseph Hutchinson Jr., and so the Job Swinnertons are my ancestors, and John's my uncle. But Job Jr. and his wife, Esther, actually signed the petition for Rebecca Nurse. So you see, these medical families were also involved in village politics.
Even one of the judges had a hand in medicine. Bartholomew Gedney, a witch judge, left behind 60 pounds worth of drugs and medicinal instruments when he died, and I believe he was mentioned during someone's defense.
Major Gedney is mentioned in Martha Corey's defense because she was found to have some ointments, and they asked where she got those from, and she said it was Major Gedney's recipe. But there's also the question, because we assume that Dr. William Griggs is the doctor who said under an evil hand, but the record that we're basing that off of doesn't actually give a name of a physician. So that account leaves open the question of, could it have been another Salem area or even Boston area physician that came up and did the diagnosis instead of Griggs? And it makes you wonder about the quality of care. When doctors couldn't find a physical cause, they looked to the supernatural. This wasn't unique to Griggs or whoever it was that said under an evil hand. In late 17th century Boston, Dr. Thomas Oakes and Dr. Benjamin Bullivant were prominent figures in medicine.
It was Dr. Oakes who is relevant to his trial context. He diagnosed the Goodwin children in 1688. In Memorable Providences, Cotton Mather noted that skillful physicians were consulted, and Dr. Oakes found himself so affronted by the distempers of the children that he concluded nothing but a hellish witchcraft could be the original of these maladies. This, of course, was the case of Goody Glover's witch trial.
And that diagnosis had set a precedent for 1692. The text says the children were tormented just in the same part of their bodies all at the same time together, even though they couldn't see or hear one another. When one's neck or hand was racked, so was the other's, supposedly.
And despite that supernatural conclusion, Dr. Oakes was well regarded. London bookseller John Dutton wrote that Oakes' prescriptions, quote, rescued languishing patients from the jaws of death, better than the mountebanks and quacksalvers.
Speaking of prescriptions, we have to talk about what these doctors were actually prescribing. We have some records of Zerubabel Endicott, a Salem physician who died in 1684. This was another one of the ones who died in the years leading up to the Salem witch trials. He left behind an extensive medical library, but his remedies, well, they were something else.
If you were, for example, suffering from the bloody flux, Endicott recommended stone horse livers.
Specifically, dried in an oven used for baking household bread, and then powdered and given a spoonful at a time in milk.
And it gets more complicated for childbirth. For sharp and difficult travail in women with child, the prescription required a lock of virgin's hair.
Not just any virgin's hair. It had to be from a virgin half the age of the woman in labor. You cut the hair and grind it into a fine powder. Then you take 12 ants' eggs, which specifically are dried in an oven after the bread is taken out, mix them with the hair powder, and serve it in a quarter pint of red cow's milk.
If you're out of red cow's milk, strong alewort would do.
Good to know there's a substitute in case you don't have a red cow lying around.
Or what if you don't have the time to go through all of that?
Who collects the ants' eggs in the first place? And who goes around saying, like, how old is this woman in travail? Who can we find who's exactly half the age of this travailing woman? So it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
It really highlights the desperation and the lack of scientific understanding they were working with. And it almost seems like magic in its own right. But when the horse livers and ant eggs failed, it's no wonder they turned to the diagnosis of the evil hand.
It's a reminder that we live in a world where science, magic, and religion are all trying to answer the same terrifying questions.